Okay, how's it going, Cinema 32-2 Advanced Editing students? Sorry for the short delay in getting you this tutorial on how to do the Whisper Fan effect shot. Let me go ahead and pull up my project. And as I mentioned, you are more than welcome and you're completely encouraged to do whatever you want with this assignment. If you've already used After Effects and you're a skillful editor, I think you should be creative with it. But if it's new to you, then I wanted to put something together that I think you can also do yourself using this tutorial, and also some of the lessons that we went over last week in class on masking and rotoscoping. I am no expert in After Effects, but I understand some basics, and I know that just through trial and error and seeking out tutorials online, there's so many resources out there, so I think you can figure out how to do whatever creative ideas you have. So let me start by showing you my my project here, and as we talked about, I think your very first step is to do the edit, to do your entire edit before you even go into the visual effects process. Remember, we talked about workflow, and VFX always come after the picture edit is done. So here I have my full edit of Whisper Fan, and as you can see, it's a pretty neat timeline. I've got the voiceover track right here that is 30 seconds exactly. I have some music down here. I've checked the levels, it's not too loud. I use many of the shots of the airplane, and as we get to this little gap here, gap is where I'm going to do the effect shot. And then after that, we've got the title, graphics, and then a fade out at the very end. So I need to do this little shot here that, as we looked at in class, it's when the woman turns off the fan and the plane drops to the ground. So let me go ahead and find my shot that I want to put into this gap. And in order to do it, I'm going to, let me close this just so I can show you from the beginning how I'm doing this. Let me go into the media folder, and as you can see over here in the project panel, I've imported all of the folders, and inside those folders are other folders with all of the footage. So it's already organized. I don't have to do any of that. Now let me look into this flight exiting, and remember, we have to put two shots together essentially, and this is a compositing shot, and the definition of compositing is combining multiple images into one image. So here on this, double click this 4-2, and as I scrub through this shot, we see the guy holding the fan, holding the plane and dropping it many takes. And so hang on one sec. Just want to make sure I'm recording. Yes. All right. So I've went ahead and added an out point because the spot that I want to use, I have a gap here, and so this seems like a quick editing thing that we can do. This little gap here seems like a good candidate for a 3-point edit. And so 3-point edit means that you define at least 3 points. That means in and out points in the source monitor and the timeline. So I've already put an out point when the plane falls, so I know that that's the end of the shot. Now let me go ahead and do an in and out point here on the timeline, and I will go ahead and hit the up arrow to mark the beginning, to get to the in point here, and then I will push I to do an in point. Let me push the down arrow and hit O to do an out point. So let's do this 3-point edit. We've got an in and an out on the timeline, and we've got just an out on the source monitor. So let me highlight the source monitor and push period for the overwrite command, and we know that our tracks are properly targeted. So as I hit period, it fills in that area nicely. And so then here, let me just go through this shot. This is the effect shot, so he drops the fan, and this is going to be good enough for me. So what do we need here? We need the shot of the woman turning the fan off, and we need to time that with his letting it go. And of course, this is well before sending it to After Effects. First, we're going to line it up. By the way, there are probably a lot of different ways to do this one shot, and this is just a way that that I've figured out how to do it, and you're more than welcome to try different ways. But with this project, if you can at least have one effect shot, that would be ideal. So let me go over here and double click on this VFX plate shot. As I double click this and look through this, this is the woman turning the fan off, I think, as I play through it. Yeah, she turns it off, walks away, and probably does it a few times. It looks like I have an in and an out here. Yep, so this is the full shot, and I've already marked my in and out here. And so let me go ahead and just send this to track 2. So to do that, I'm going to select the source, video 1, and the timeline, video 1. And let me put this up arrow to, actually, I'll just put it, I'll shift, drag to that spot. Now I'll hit period. And now we've got it to where, and I may need to adjust this because I need to time it with her. I need to time her turning it off with the plane dropping. So I'm going to change the opacity on this shot. So double clicking it, going to the effect controls, I'm going to make the opacity half, 50, and then because I did that, now we can see the shot below it. So she comes in, pushes the period, and he drops it. Looks like we need to move it a little more to the right. And I'm just going to kind of guesstimate here. That looks good. You see how she turns it off, the plane falls. That's going to work for me here. Now I'm going to trim this shot to match the shot exactly below it. I'm going to hit plus to zoom in a little bit. Alright, so this is going to work for me. So let me restore this opacity back to 100%. And actually, we need to layer the plane shot above her, so I'm just going to click and drag that and put it right above it. I'm going to shift click the one below, bring them both down, and now this shot is going to become just the plane because this is the shot we're going to send to After Effects, and so we're going to be able to see below it. The rest of the image is going to be transparent, so we'll be able to see her turning it off below this shot. Now I've also realized after thinking about this that I'm going to, remember when we did the selection of the plane in After Effects and how it got really difficult to select a plane against the white background on this table? So what I'm going to do is duplicate this exact shot, and then I'm going to crop it right to the top of the table there. That way I don't have to really make a selection of the plane once it hits the table. So if that doesn't make sense, just watch what I do here. I'm going to just duplicate this shot and put it right above it on the video track 3. So to duplicate a shot, you can hold down Alt or Option and then just click and drag, and that makes an exact copy of that same shot. Now let me go ahead and disable that shot so that we don't see it. And then again, this middle shot is the one that we're going to send over to After Effects. So let me go ahead and do that right now. And this is the beauty of this whole exercise, is working with Premiere and After Effects together. And again, once you've got your whole edit, we can see it here. You know, all you do is your VFX shot with from Premiere, and then Premiere and After Effects work together. So right click on the shot, and you can also select a range of clips. You don't have to just select one clip. Whatever you select and then right click, replace with After Effects composition, that's what's going to go to After Effects. So let me go ahead and do that. Right click, After Effects opens. It will probably ask me where to save this After Effects shot, and it may take a minute here. Yep, always takes a minute to open. There it goes. Yep, came up. It's asking me where to save this After Effects project, because just like Premiere has a project file, After Effects does also. And I'm just going to put it in the same folder as my Whisper Fan stuff. And I've already done a couple of tests today, so let me just duplicate this and put a number 2 after it. So this will be a whole new project. And then it opens up After Effects and it creates a composition. And as we can see, it's got, as I move the time indicator forward, and as you can see, After Effects looks a lot like Premiere. The playhead is now what's called a time indicator. So let me push home to put that to the beginning. And it's very important that you do the work on the layer, not on the composition. As we can see over here in the project panel, we've got our shot, and then we've also got the composition that After Effects has created. So I need to double click on the layer to open up the layer view. Let me double click that. Alright, so as we can see up here in the program monitor or the composition panel, we've got the composition view and then the layer view, and we're going to do our selection on the layer view. Alright, so there's a few commands here that become really important to know how to use. You can use the scroll bar, the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. I'm just using the scroll wheel on my mouse, and then I can hit the space bar to change this selection tool to the hand tool. So I can zoom in with the scroll wheel, push the space bar, click and drag, perfect. And then again, so I can zoom out, push the hand tool to move it around, zoom in. So a really nice way to navigate around here. Alright, so we're going to use the Roto Brush tool. You could do the pen tool and make your little mask properties, but this would be much more time consuming as you advance further in the shot. So instead of this, I'm just gonna, let me undo all of that. The Roto Brush tool makes making these kinds of selections very, very easy. So the Roto Brush tool is right up here along the top panel. Select the Roto Brush tool, and we need to make sure the brush is the right size, and this is a great shortcut. If you hold down Control or Command and you click and drag to the right or left, you change the size of your brush. So because the plane is so relatively easy, it's going to be very quick to make this selection. So I'm just going to, once I get the brush to the size that I like, I'm going to click and drag it across there, and I'm going to let After Effects do the rest. Alright, so it looks like it's a pretty good selection right away. We can see the pink outline. There is this little spot here where it caught some of his thumb, so let me go in there and get rid of that. So I'm going to lower the size of my brush. Also, don't worry if the background turns pink. It'll come back to normal eventually. So let me push Control, get the brush a little smaller, because as we can see, it's a green tool with a plus sign in the middle. If you push Alt or Option, it turns to red and with a minus sign. So that's how you deselect a certain area of your mask. So I'm going to hold down Option, click and drag across that, and then as we can see, it fixed it perfectly. So now again, this looks like a really nice selection. And once you've got that selection, let me get my brush a little higher again. Once you got this selection, then you need to advance forward frame by frame, and After Effects will kind of follow the plane, and your job is to make sure that this mask that you've created stays in the right spots along the edge of the plane. So to advance forward and backwards, it's the number 2 and the number 1. So as I hit number 2, there it goes with that finger again, or that area. Oops, let me undo that. There it goes around that edge around the thumb, so let me get rid of that. I've just advanced a couple of frames, so let me hit Alt and go across that. I don't want that to be selected. Okay, good. Now I'm gonna, as I keep going, it's gonna hopefully, yes, I'm going frame by frame, and I just have to keep doing that. So it looks like the white edge of that thumb. Okay, now it stopped doing it, so let me zoom out here, push the space bar, click and drag, advance it further. Alright, so I'm just pushing number 2, and as we can see, this isn't perfect here. If we wanted to get that perfect, you know how to do it. Zoom in, make the selection in the white area, but I just wanted to show you how to do this fairly quickly. Alright, so let's keep advancing along here. I'm fine with this selection the way it is. I'm pushing number 2, advancing to the right, and then it looks like it disappeared there, so that means we need to create a new base frame. So let me just do the exact same thing again. Selecting with the Roto Brush tool. I'll just leave that alone for now. But and then as we look even closer here, we can see on this little span, this range, we can see like a little blue rectangle right there. That means those are the areas where I have defined the base frame. So that's telling After Effects that this is sort of the basis from which to create the mask to follow every ensuing frame based on this selection. So I'm still hitting number 2, advancing along, and very soon here he's going to start dropping the plane, and then I'll need to pay attention to the selection. There, the mask disappeared, so I just hit 1 to go back. Number 1 goes reverse, number 2 goes forward, so let me just make that selection again, and looks good. And boy, that rotor brush sure makes it easier than using the pen tool. So it looks like he's letting it go here. Alright, now he's just starting to drop it. Let me go ahead and just clean this up a little, and advancing forward, hitting number 2, spacebar to move it up. And let me also, deselect around the edge of his hand there. Fine. Okay. Now, let's add a little bit there. Works. Okay. I'm going to zoom out just a hair. And then again, it's just a few commands to know how to navigate. Now, as we can see, it's very difficult to separate the plane from the table, but I'm okay with that because of the technique that I'm going to do in Premiere. I'm not even going to worry about what's on the table. And as we can see, the selection is all messed up, but I'm just going to take this all the way to the end, because by this point in the shot, I'm going to be using that other shot in Premiere that I layered above it. But I do want to just keep this selection throughout the whole shot. So now that the plane is static on the table, it should be a little bit easier, although it's still white plane against a white background, which makes it difficult. So let me just use that roto brush tool to make that selection. See, it took a whole bunch of that table, so I'm going to widen the brush, change it to subtract from the mask, and there we go. Make the brush a little smaller. Alright, good enough. Number 2 to advance. More. Alright. Okay, getting forward. As you can see, on the timeline, I've just about made it to the end. Alright, so that's pretty much the whole shot, making the selection using the roto brush tool. Now let me go ahead and fit it to screen. And then the key thing here is to hit freeze to basically lock your selection. So I'm going to hit freeze, and if this is a complicated shot, After Effects might take quite a long time to do this. Might be a good time to take a break, but it's a relatively simple shot, so it shouldn't take too long. Alright, we'll be back as soon as this is done. Alright, so here we are back in After Effects, and the selection that I made with the plane is now frozen. We can see the blue freeze button is now in blue there, and as we look through this timeline panel, we can see all of the keyframes that got put in there. These are it looks like strokes, the ones that I made with the roto brush tool, and all of these various layers I think can get very intimidating in After Effects. So you can just twirl all this up and rest assured that it's all good. So since I'm done with the layer view, let me close the layer view, and as I go back to the composition view, it should be the plane. So there we go. Let me click inside the timeline and push the space bar, and there's my selection. It's just the plane, and it drops, and as we can see, it gets goofed up there, but I don't care about that because I'm going to fix that in Premiere. Alright, so we're done with After Effects. Don't close it, just minimize it. I'm going to go to Minimize After Effects back at Premiere, and as we can see now, there's a red bar above the effects shot saying that it needs to be rendered. Also, looking in the project panel, we can see that it created something, the linked composition, so it added this shot here to the project panel in Premiere. And so this is what this is now. And let me go ahead and render this first. I'll just hit return. Oops. Hit return to render. And then let's go forward on the project and look at that effect shot. And we should see the woman behind it turning the thing, and then just the plane. Let's see how it looks.
Lightest and safest fan ever made.
Alright. Looks good, and it looks like The opacity on her shot might still be, double click that, come over here to the effect controls. Looks like I added some keyframes on opacity, which I don't want to do. Let me just delete those keyframes, come back to 100, and now she is fully visible. The plane is also good, and everything's good. If you look closely, you know, the selection gets messed up when it hits the table, so let's try my idea of using this shot above here. So let's re-enable this shot, and of course that shot is going to cover up everything below it. But what I'm going to do with this shot is crop it so that we can only see the bottom. So let's go and find the crop effect, and that is in the effects window from the project panel. There it is highlighted, crop effect. I double click this shot, come up to the effect controls, click and drag the crop tool, and now the crop effect is applied to this shot. So let me take the top. I'm going to click and drag this top, and look what happens there. It just completely takes out the top part of the shot. So let me go right to the edge of the table, about right there, and I don't really even need it until he drops the fan. So when her hand leaves, I'm going to advance frame by frame. Watch, I'm holding K, tapping L. When her hand leaves, perfect. Now I only need this shot at that point, so I'm going to zoom in by pushing plus, click the edge of this shot, drag it to there, and now when the plane hits, it's the original shot, so it's not even looking at the After Effects composition. So the original shot here is covering up the effect shot that we just did, and of course she is visible below that. So let me hit render one more time by pushing return, and
traditionally fans work by chopping the air,
project now.
causing annoying buffeting. The turbulence is noisy and wastes energy.
I'm on full resolution here. Let me come down to maybe half resolution.
Solution is to lose the blades and route the air through a seamless airfoil, creating a smooth jet of air. This makes for the smoothest, quietest, and safest fan ever made. Whisper fans. No blades, no buffeting. Learn more at whisperfan.com.
Alright, so that's my Top Gun inspired Whisper Fan commercial. If I had a lot of time, I would go all out and add some Highway to the Danger Zone action shots, and so have fun with it. Also, in browsing this footage, and again, this is new for our department, so you're only the second class to even have this. As I look in here and browse some of this other footage, let's look at down here. There's one called VFX Plate, and as we look at this, all it is a shot of the fans without the plane. And I think what this was intended to be was a background plate without the wires. So that's how you could do the wire removal. You could take the other shots of the plane in this angle, make a selection just like we did, and then put that selection in front of this shot on your Premiere timeline. So all of this material looks like it was all pretty well planned out, and if you wanted to go ahead and do wire removal, then I'll definitely give you extra credit for that. So, alright, I hope this helps. Have fun with it, and we'll see all of your projects on Tuesday. Have a good rest of your weekend.